The beginning of the silence, the night was glittering with lights. Cameras flashed like storms, and the red carpet was glowing with excitement. Every step was recorded, every smile captured. Reporters whispered and shouted, desperate to catch the perfect moment. It was one of those evenings when Hollywood seemed larger than life, filled with stars who carried both charm and burden on their shoulders. As Anna walked down the carpet, the attention was immediate. Her dress shimmered under the lights like liquid silver, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Flashes followed her like fireflies, and her name rolled through the air again and again. Everyone wanted her picture. Everyone wanted her smile. For a moment it felt like she was the only star in the world, but not far behind her, Sandra Bullock was making her way forward. Sandra had seen it all, decades of films, countless awards, endless nights under these same lights. She had learned long ago that fame can be both beautiful and cruel. Tonight she noticed something that stirred her heart. The cameras shifted quickly, moving away from her, almost forgetting her presence as they locked onto Anna. Sandra smiled with grace, but inside she felt the sting of being unseen. It was not jealousy in its purest form, but rather the quiet ache of being overlooked, as though years of hard work could be swept away in a single evening of flashing bulbs. Keanu walked behind them, quiet as always. He did not rush for attention, nor did he lean into the crowd for approval. He walked with a calm step, his hands relaxed, his eyes soft. He noticed what others did not. He saw Sandra's small smile, the one she used to hide her feelings. He saw how the cheers seemed to fade when she walked by, and in that moment he decided that silence was not enough. The cameras were shouting for Anna. Reporters were leaning over each other, calling her name louder and louder. But Keanu paused, turned back, and offered his hand to Sandra. It was a simple gesture, so small that it could have been missed. Yet it carried weight. Sandra looked at him, surprised, almost caught off guard. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. The two walked side by side, Keanu slowing his pace deliberately so the cameras could not ignore them. The crowd fell into a strange hush. It was as though the night itself shifted. Attention scattered, and people began to see not just Anna, but the quiet bond between Keanu and Sandra. It was a moment of respect, of kindness that needed no words. Even Anna, bathed in applause, turned back and noticed. She saw the way Keanu's small action changed the energy around them. She realized that being admired was not the same as being truly seen. Inside the grand hall, the music swelled and the evening continued. But the moment on the carpet stayed in the hearts of many. Whispers moved through the crowd. Had they just witnessed something rare? Not drama, not rivalry, but respect in its purest form. Sandra remained silent, though inside she felt something she had not felt in years. It was not pity nor forced attention, but the simple comfort of being valued. Her eyes softened as she walked beside Keanu, and she wondered if anyone else had noticed how deeply his small act had spoken. The night had only begun, but already the story was no longer about glamour. It was about something deeper. And though no one knew it yet, the silence that followed would echo louder than applause. The whisper beneath the lights, the grand hall was filled with golden light, chandeliers hanging like captured stars. Laughter and music echoed, but beneath the surface, the air carried something heavier. People were dressed in their finest, yet behind every polished smile lived a story of struggle, fear, or pride waiting to be noticed. Anna entered with grace, and once again the room seemed to turn toward her. Compliments floated around her like petals in the wind. Stunning, brilliant, the star of the night. She smiled, but inside her chest was a quiet storm. She remembered the nights of rejection, the endless auditions, the doubt that had followed her. The praise tonight felt overwhelming, almost unreal, as though the world wanted to give her everything at once. And still, she caught glimpses of Sandra's steady silence in the corner of her eye. Sandra moved carefully through the crowd. She was used to admiration and also used to its absence. Tonight, she chose not to chase the lights. Instead, she observed. She noticed how young actors laughed too loudly, desperate to be heard. She noticed how some veterans leaned into their drinks, bitter from being forgotten. She noticed, too, how Keanu remained apart, offering quiet nods but rarely pulling the spotlight to himself. Keanu stood near the edge of the hall, his gaze calm but sharp. He had seen many rooms like this before, and he knew the truth that others often denied. Attention is not the same as respect. He heard whispers among the crowd, small remarks meant to cut, hidden behind polite smiles. One voice near him murmured, "Sandra had her time, now it's on a stage." Another chuckled, "Keanu never changes, still walking like he doesn't belong to Hollywood at all." Their words were not meant to be loud, yet they carried weight. He felt them press against his chest, but he did not flinch. Instead, he let the silence inside him grow stronger. Suddenly, an unexpected twist broke the flow of the evening. A journalist approached Anna with a question that was sharp, wrapped in sweetness but edged like a blade. "Anna, how does it feel to outshine legends tonight? Even Sandra seems invisible next to you." The hall grew still for a second, the question lingering like smoke. Anna froze. She did not expect this. Her smile faltered and her heart pounded. She glanced at Sandra, who stood just a few steps away. Sandra's face remained calm, her eyes steady, but inside, a wave of emotion rose. Humiliation was not new to her, but tonight it struck harder because it was so public, so cold. Before Anna could speak, Keanu stepped forward. His voice was soft but carried like thunder through the hall. "No one here is invisible. Respect doesn't fade with time, and true stars never stop shining." His words were not shouted, yet they silenced the room. Cameras turned, microphones lifted, and for once the story shifted. The journalist stammered, caught off guard. Anna lowered her eyes, ashamed that her success had been used as a weapon against someone she admired. Sandra exhaled slowly, her chest tight with both relief and gratitude. She realized that Keanu's defense was not just for her, it was for the dignity of everyone who had ever been made to feel less. The hall buzzed with tension. Whispers grew, but this time they were different. People murmured about Keanu's courage, about the way he had dismantled cruelty without anger. Then, in the quiet after, something unexpected happened. Anna reached out and took Sandra's hand. Her voice trembled, but she said clearly enough for others to hear, "I would not be here without women like her." The hall gasped softly. This was not planned. It was raw, real, and full of honesty. For the first time that night, the applause was not for beauty or glamour, it was for truth. But beneath the applause, another shadow stirred. In the far corner of the hall, a figure watched with narrowed eyes, a rival actor known for arrogance and envy. He saw how the moment shifted, how attention moved away from the scripted glamour and toward something deeper. His pride could not allow it. Quietly, he whispered to another guest, planting seeds of gossip, determined to turn this moment of unity into another storm. The evening was far from over. What began as a night of lights was slowly becoming something much more dangerous. A battle not of fame, but of respect, envy, and the fragile human heart. The shadow in the crowd, the applause, still lingered in the hall, echoing like a heartbeat against the tall walls and glittering chandeliers. Anna held Sandra's hand, and for a brief moment, the entire room seemed to breathe differently. What had started as a simple red carpet evening was now turning into something unforgettable, something no one had expected, respect becoming louder than fame. But not everyone welcomed it. In the corner, partially hidden in the shadows, stood Leonard Hale, an actor with a reputation as sharp as broken glass. Once a rising star, he had lost his place in the spotlight years ago. Bitterness had become his companion, and envy burned through his veins like poison. Tonight, he had come expecting to be ignored, but what he saw, Keanu's words, Anna's honesty, Sandra's quiet dignity, ignited something darker in him. He leaned closer to another guest, a producer known for chasing scandal. "See how easily the crowd shifts," Leonard whispered, his lips curling into a smile that held no warmth. "This isn't about respect, it's strategy. Keanu knows how to steal attention without even trying. And Sandra, she's clinging to relevance. Give it a week and they'll be forgotten again." The producer raised a brow, but he didn't dismiss Leonard. He knew that in Hollywood, a single rumor could cut deeper than truth. Meanwhile, at the center of the hall, the energy felt different. Sandra, still holding Anna's hand, tried to steady her breath. Her chest was heavy, her mind filled with questions. Why had that journalist tried to pit them against each other? Why had people so easily accepted the idea that one woman's shine must erase another's? She glanced at Keanu, who had stepped back into the shadows after his words. His calm presence grounded her, reminding her that sometimes the strongest actions were the simplest ones. But even Keanu felt something stirring. His instincts told him that the night was not finished testing them. Years in this industry had taught him that respect is fragile, easily broken by envy, easily silenced by gossip. He could almost feel eyes watching him from the corners, waiting for a weakness to exploit. The evening program continued. Speeches began, awards were announced, and music filled the air. But beneath the surface, tension grew like cracks in glass. When Anna stepped on stage to present an award, she felt a strange unease. The applause was loud, but she noticed whispers spreading across certain tables. She could not hear the words, but she saw the glances, toward her, then toward Sandra, then toward Keanu. The storm of gossip had begun, and it moved with dangerous speed. Back at her table, Sandra received a polite smile from a younger actress, but the smile was thin, almost mocking. "You must feel proud," the actress said softly, "to finally be noticed again." Sandra's heart sank. The words were coated with sweetness, but the sting was sharp. She realized the whispers were already working, twisting the earlier moment of unity into a story of pity. Keanu returned just then, sensing the shift. He placed a glass of water in front of Sandra without saying a word. Their eyes met, and she understood he had heard too. His silence was not empty, it was a shield. But he also knew silence could not stop everything. As the night wore on, Leonard's whispers spread further. He told one person that Anna was using Sandra for sympathy. He told another that Keanu was orchestrating the whole display to make himself look like the savior. By the time dessert was served, the story had already twisted beyond recognition. Yet something happened that Leonard did not expect. Anna, stepping off stage after her presentation, walked straight to Sandra in front of everyone. She hugged her tightly and said, "They may compare us, but I only see you as a guide." The room gasped. Cameras flashed. Once again, the script of envy was shattered by raw honesty. Sandra's eyes watered, not from weakness but from relief. Keanu, watching from nearby, allowed himself the smallest smile. He knew truth was powerful, but he also knew it would provoke more resistance. Leonard clenched his fist under the table. The kindness between them was ruining his plan, but envy is patient, and darkness often waits for the right moment. He decided he would not strike tonight. He would wait, gather more, and turn the next opportunity into something no one could ignore. What no one realized was that this storm was only beginning. Respect had been defended once, but envy was relentless, and the next test would not be so easy to silence. The crack in the glass, the night pressed forward like a river that refused to stop. Music played, glasses clinked, and laughter floated through the golden air of the hall. On the surface, it was still glamorous, still polished. But beneath it, tension crawled like smoke. Whispers slithered from table to table, changing shape with every ear they entered. What had begun as admiration was slowly being reshaped into doubt, envy, and suspicion. Keanu felt it before most. He had always been sensitive to shifts in energy, and tonight was no exception. He saw the way glances lingered a moment too long, the way laughter sharpened when Sandra passed, the way compliments to Anna carried a faint edge, as if meant to push her into a corner rather than lift her. He knew someone was feeding this fire. At the far end of the hall, Leonard Hale waited. He had planted enough seeds of gossip to let them spread on their own, but he wasn't done. He wanted spectacle. He wanted a moment so loud it would drown out the truth they had tried to protect. And when the host announced a surprise panel, an unscripted conversation between stars, Leonard saw his chance. Anna, Sandra, and Keanu were invited on stage alongside Leonard and two other actors. The audience clapped warmly, expecting light banter, funny anecdotes, maybe even a heartwarming moment or two. But Leonard had other plans. He leaned into his microphone, his smile sharp as he spoke. "It's amazing, isn't it, how quickly the spotlight shifts. One day you're the favorite, the next you're only noticed when someone else holds your hand." The words hung in the air like a knife. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Anna's heart tightened, Sandra's breath caught, and Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly, though his face remained calm. Sandra spoke first, her voice steady. "The spotlight is not a prize, it's borrowed light. What matters is what we do with it." The audience clapped gently, but Leonard was not satisfied. He pressed harder, his tone sharper. "Oh, come on, let's not pretend. People aren't cheering for everyone equally. Some are being forgotten. Some are clinging, isn't that the truth?" He turned his gaze to Sandra, daring her to flinch. Before Sandra could answer, Anna leaned forward. "I don't see it that way," she said softly. "I see women who opened doors before me, who faced struggles I can't imagine. I don't stand here alone, I stand because of them." Her voice trembled, but her words rang with sincerity. The hall fell silent, and for a moment it seemed the tension might dissolve. But Leonard's envy was too deep. He smirked and delivered the blow he had been saving. "Funny," he said, "because some people are saying you're using Sandra to look humble, and that Keanu here is just playing the hero, making sure the cameras see him as the quiet savior. Maybe this respect you talk about is just another performance." Gasps rippled through the hall. The audience shifted, caught between disbelief and curiosity. Leonard had taken the whispers and thrown them into the open. The trap was set. Anna's face went pale. She wanted to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. Sandra felt anger rise in her chest, an anger she had not felt in years. She could bear being overlooked, but seeing kindness twisted into manipulation struck her deeply. Then Keanu moved. He didn't rush, he didn't raise his voice. He simply leaned toward his microphone, his eyes calm, his tone steady. "You know," he said, "people can say many things. But at the end of the day, truth doesn't need to shout. It shows itself over time. Respect cannot be staged. Kindness cannot be faked, not for long. If anyone here doubts that, then maybe they should stop listening to whispers and start looking at actions." His words sank into the hall like stones into water, creating ripples that spread to every corner. The tension cracked, but not completely. The crowd erupted into applause, though some faces remained doubtful, their minds caught between the truth they saw and the lies they had heard. Leonard forced a laugh, pretending to shrug it off, but his jaw tightened. He had failed to humiliate them outright, but he had planted suspicion. He knew that once suspicion takes root, it grows even when denied. After the panel ended, the three of them, Keanu, Anna, and Sandra, returned to their table in silence. Anna's eyes were glassy, Sandra's hands trembled slightly, and Keanu's jaw was set. Anna whispered, "Why did he do that? Why would he try to destroy something that isn't even about him?" Keanu looked at her gently. "Because envy never needs a reason, it only needs an opening." Sandra leaned back, her chest heavy. "Then we can't give him another one?" But even as she said it, she knew the fight was not over. Leonard's envy had not burned out, it had only begun to take shape. Somewhere deep inside, she felt that the true storm was still waiting, and when it came, it would test more than their reputations. It would test who they were at their core. The storm breaks the hall was alive with chatter long after the panel ended. People whispered in corners, some defending Keanu's words, others repeating Leonard's accusations as though they carried truth. The air was thick, not with music or laughter anymore, but with doubt. Anna sat quietly at the table, her hands folded together, trying to calm the storm in her chest. She had always known fame was fragile, but tonight she felt its cruelty more than ever. Her success, which once felt like a dream come true, now felt like a weapon turned against the very people she respected. Sandra sat beside her, silent but heavy with thought. She had weathered years of highs and lows, yet tonight felt different. Tonight was not just about her. It was about how easily kindness could be twisted into something ugly. Keanu watched both of them. His calm expression remained, but inside he was calculating. He knew Leonard would not stop here. Men like him rarely did. They thrived on chaos, feeding on the cracks in others until the whole structure collapsed. Keanu was certain Leonard would strike again before the night ended. And he was right. As the final award of the evening was announced, the room's attention turned to the large screen at the back of the hall. The organizers had prepared a montage, a celebration of the night's highlights. Clips of stars arriving, speeches, laughter, music. It was meant to end the night on a note of joy. But halfway through the montage, something unexpected appeared. Grainy footage clearly spliced in filled the screen. It showed Anna laughing backstage earlier in the evening, a private moment taken out of context. Then over the footage, a distorted voice said, "She pretends to honor legends, but behind closed doors she mocks them." The hall froze. Gasps erupted. Some people turned to look at Sandra instantly, waiting to see her reaction. The footage wasn't real, not fully, but it was edited cleverly enough to create doubt. Anna's face went white. She shook her head, whispering, "That's not me, that's not real." Her voice cracked, panic rising. Sandra felt anger blaze inside her. She knew it was a lie, but she also knew how quickly lies spread when they looked convincing. Her eyes swept the crowd, searching for the face she knew was behind this. And there he was. Leonard, sitting near the shadows again, his lips curved in a smug smile. He had orchestrated it all, slipping the doctored footage into the montage to humiliate them publicly. The room erupted in whispers. Some believed it instantly. Others looked uncertain. And in that chaos, Sandra realized how fragile truth could be. Before panic could swallow the room, Keanu stood. He didn't rush, he didn't shout, but his presence drew every eye to him. He walked calmly to the stage, took the microphone, and faced the audience. "What you just saw," he said, his voice steady, "is not truth. It is manipulation, and I think everyone here knows that when envy cannot win with honesty, it turns to lies." The hall was silent, hanging on his words. Keanu glanced at Anna, then at Sandra, then back at the crowd. "I've worked with these women. I've seen their integrity, their strength, their kindness. You can choose to believe whispers and shadows, or you can choose to believe the people who have stood in front of you for years with nothing but honesty. The question is, who do you trust more, a lie that hides or a truth that stands here openly?" The room shifted. Applause began slowly, then grew louder, filling the hall like thunder. Some still whispered, still doubted, but the tide had turned. Keanu's calm strength had pulled them back from the edge. Anna covered her face with her hands, tears slipping through her fingers, not of shame, but of relief. Sandra placed a hand on her shoulder, her heart swelling with gratitude. But Leonard did not flinch. He sat unmoved, his smile thinner now, colder. He knew he had failed to break them, but he also knew the game was not over. In Hollywood, scandals had a way of living longer than truths. As the applause faded, Sandra leaned toward Keanu and whispered, "He won't stop, not until he destroys one of us." Keanu nodded slightly, his eyes still fixed on Leonard. "Then we won't give him the chance." And in that moment, all three of them understood. This was no longer about one night. It was about something far greater. It was about proving that dignity could survive the sharpest attacks, that kindness could outlast envy, and that silence, when spoken at the right time, could silence every lie. The silence that ended everything. The applause from Keanu's defense still echoed in the grand hall, but beneath the noise, tension simmered. The lie Leonard had planted was clever, and though the crowd had leaned toward truth, the whispers would not die so easily. Scandal, once born, was like fire. It clung, it spread, and it left scars no matter how many tried to put it out. Anna sat trembling, her eyes red from tears. Sandra held her hand, but even she felt the weight pressing down. She knew too well how fast lies could overshadow years of hard work. In the world of fame, perception was reality, and reality could be rewritten in a single evening. Keanu remained calm, but his calmness was not emptiness. It was the stillness of a man preparing for the final blow. He knew Leonard was not done. He could see it in his eyes, the smug satisfaction of someone who believed he had already won, even if others didn't see it yet. And then it happened. Leonard stood, his glass of wine in hand, and raised his voice just enough for the crowd to hear. "How poetic," he sneered, "that Keanu speaks of truth when truth itself is a performance here. Do you really believe this is kindness? It's strategy. Sandra clings to sympathy, Anna hides behind tears, and Keanu plays the savior. It's all an act, and you've all fallen for it." The room gasped. Cameras turned. Journalists leaned forward. The words were poison, spoken with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. Anna's chest tightened. Sandra's fists clenched. But Keanu only walked forward. Slow, deliberate, every step pulling the attention of the hall back to him. He stopped in front of Leonard, close enough for everyone to feel the weight of the silence that followed. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Then Keanu's voice came, soft, steady, but carrying more power than any shout could hold. "You call kindness an act," he said, "because you cannot imagine it being real. You call respect a performance because you've never given it freely. But here's the truth. Kindness doesn't need applause, and respect doesn't need a stage. They live in the choices we make when no one is watching. And tonight everyone is watching you." The crowd shifted. All eyes turned to Leonard, his arrogance faltering under the weight of the words. For the first time that night, his smirk cracked. Keanu didn't stop. "You want to tear people down because you think it makes you taller. But envy doesn't lift anyone, it only burns. And when it's gone, all that's left is ashes. So ask yourself, Leonard, when this night ends, when the cameras leave, what will you be left with? Respect or ashes?" The silence that followed was absolute, not a whisper, not a cough. The hall was frozen, hanging on the weight of truth spoken without anger, without force, only honesty. Leonard's face hardened, but the crowd was no longer with him. The whispers turned, the glances shifted, and the applause began, not for Leonard, but for Keanu, for Sandra, for Anna. It started small, then grew into thunder, echoing so loudly that Leonard could not stand against it. Sandra, tears glistening in her eyes, stood beside Keanu. "Respect is not given by applause," she said softly, but firmly. "It's earned by the way we treat each other. And tonight we've all seen who deserves it." Anna joined them, her voice trembling but true. "I will not let lies define me. I will honor those who came before me, and I will never let envy erase the kindness that made me who I am." The three of them stood together, side by side. No script, no performance, just truth. The hall erupted, cameras flashing, voices rising in cheers that drowned out the last shadow of doubt. Leonard sank back into his seat, his face pale. His envy had failed. His lies had been silenced. And though he would still try to spread his poison in the dark corners of the industry, tonight was the night the world saw through him. The rest of the evening passed like a blur. But for those who were there, it was not the awards or the speeches they remembered. It was the moment when three people stood against envy and proved that respect, humility, and kindness could not be destroyed. Later, as the hall emptied and the lights dimmed, Sandra, Anna, and Keanu stepped outside together. The night air was cool, the stars scattered across the sky like quiet witnesses. Anna whispered, "Thank you for not letting me fall apart." Sandra smiled faintly. "Thank you for reminding me that I am not forgotten." And Keanu, as calm as ever, simply said, "Thank you for reminding the world that truth still matters." They stood in silence for a moment, not needing to say more. The storm had passed, but its lesson would echo for years. Envy had tried to break them, but in the end, it only revealed their strength. And the silence that followed Keanu's words, was louder than applause, louder than lies, louder than envy itself.